Track 4. Continuation of Chapter 3 and the complete Chapter 4. Sects and FGM, Religious and Complications in Iran. As we discussed in earlier chapters, the Shia-led Iranian government is reluctant to intervene in FGM, which is considered a Sunni Shafi practice that happens mostly in underdeveloped Kurdish border provinces and among Sunni Persian-speaking communities in the south. The notion of sectarian rivalry among Sunnis and Shia is centuries old. There is a lack of trust on religion and ethnic grounds between the two branches of Islam. So any intervention against FGM by the state may spark feelings of resentment against high-handed interference. For the study, besides contacting and lobbying Sunni religious leaders in FGM-affected areas, we visited the holy cities of Qom and Mashhad, where the most of the 18 Marja' Taqlid are based and have official advisory offices. They hold what are called knowledge rings, halqe mahrift. Some of these grand ayatollahs were consulted either in person or via their representatives about the validity of FGM within Shia Islam. Although some of their responses were mutually contradictory, they stressed that FGM is more rooted in Sunni Islam and not obligatory for Shias. If it happens among Shia minorities in parts of Iran or Iraq, it is because of close proximity to a mainly Sunni population and is more cross-cultural than anything else. Of course, Shia fatwas are not going to carry much weight among Sunni population. Moreover, Sunni Muslims mainly follow Sunnah, and the concept of following a fatwa is not common as it is among Shia Muslims. The above discussion reveals a dilemma that fatwas against FGM given by the clerics of Shia sect, such as Marja' Taqlid, would not occupy a reliable place among the FGM supporters of Sunni sect. In addition, any attempt to impose Shia fatwa may backfire and ignite anger among Sunnis. Though the ruling power in Iran is Shia-dominated, support of Sunni clerics for legislative purposes can provide smoother approval by the lawmakers. In the page 104, there is a photo. It is called Clergy Opposing FGM, Gambarun Village, Hormozgan. The picture is taken by Kamil Ahmadi. It's a picture of a Muslim man holding a baby in an enclosed space. Perspective of prominent clerics. In the course of our research period, we obtained 14 different fatwas, guiding notes and recommendations from Sunni clerics in Iran, and made useful contacts with more prominent clerics and officials within the Sunni Cleric Council of Kurdistan, West Azerbaijan, Kermanshah and Hormozgan provinces. Some of them were condemning of FGM. However, fatwas issued in one area may not have much impact in other provinces, or in some cases, even in nearby villages. Given that each village has its mosque and independent clerics whose salaries is paid by local contributions, any fatwa issued by clerics in the same rank in nearby territories can be considered weak or invalid by a local cleric. We have presented below some Sunni clerics' view compiled through our research. In general, they either looked positively on the idea of abandoning FGM or supported the practice. Viewpoints of both camps are featured in the short documentary In the Name of Tradition. Mullah Talib Mudizahed from Bandarpal, Hormozgan Province, 2010. Regarding the proven medical and psychological arguments about the dangers of female circumcision and availability of concrete accounts, and most sciences have proven the disadvantages of this act and insist so it's better not to be performed. My wife, Molavi Amineh, and I have always strictly recommended people of this port and neighboring villages not to circumcise their daughters, but circumcision is good and compulsory for their sons. It has many disadvantages and maybe leads to disloyalty of men and even having several wives. Imam Shafi has two different opinions about circumcision, and other Sunni Imams do not believe that it is compulsory. I think not that it has been proven that it is not good for sexual relations, and the amount to which the cutting should be done is not definitive. Not doing it would be better and more appropriate. I have not circumcised any of my 3 daughters because I am afraid the danger to their body and soul. Parsian, Hormozgan Province, April 2012. The most interesting and more liberal point of view came from Haji Mullah Said Hassan Vaji, Sunni cleric from Kermanshah in West Azerbaijan province. He believes that new medical knowledge emphasizes the damages and harms of female circumcision on the body and mind. He says that according to Imam Shafi and the hadith referenced in girl circumcision is good for brightening the face and increasing sexual appetite and easing sexual intercourse. With this in mind, he argued that we cannot immediately rule out FGM, but according to general interference from Islam about causing harm and damage by an act or acts, and the fact that medical science now considers female circumcision harmful, and giving that the general command advised to cut only a little, Islam gives the authority to decide on female circumcision to the girl. She can seek the opinion of a specialist, and in case of the availability of an expert circumciser after reaching a legal age, she can make the decision to do it or not. In the page 106, there is a photo. It is called Mosque in Mahabad, West Azerbaijan. It's taken by Kamil Ahmadi. It's a picture of an inside of a mosque, and few men are sitting side by side. But according to the general interference from Islam about causing harm and damage by an act or acts, and the fact that medical science now considers female circumcision harmful, and giving that the general command advised to cut only a little, Islam gives the authority to decide on female circumcision to the girl. Parents are not required to have their children circumcised. The decision rests on the sons and daughters. In case parents are doubtful or insist on circumcision, Shafi followers can follow the principle of 3 other schools of Sunni jurisprudence, which do not make female circumcision compulsory for Sunni under certain circumstances. Switching from their usual school is allowable. He says, in my opinion, girl circumcision does not have many advantages for the girl, and I have personally warned my family members, relatives, and friends about it. I have also given advice and guidance about female circumcision in my sermons during Friday prayers, and I have prevented this act to be carried out on my own family members. Ashara al-Mubasharin Mosque, Kermanshah, West Azerbaijan, April 2014. Elham Mandagari, in her thesis, Violation of Women's Bodily Integrity from Human Rights Perspective, also reports the view of 2 Sunni clerics in the south of Iran. Sheikh Ahmadi Rahmani shared that fallibility exists in all religions. If it was not so, Imam Shafi himself would not have 2 opinions, and he knows cutting the sexual organs of women, both wajib, compulsory, and mustahab, recommended. Fallibility must have different reasons. One reason might be that Imam Shafi has old and new sayings. Old sayings belong to the time when he was in Iraq, and he might have got those opinions from his masters or the hadiths he had available. Then he went to Egypt and surely met other scholars and got to know them, and in some issues gave up his old opinions. Sheikh Muhammad Mehdi from Qeshm Island states, the opinion of religion cannot be the opinion of all sages. There was a time that it was compelled. Religion had its opinion on its own realm. Not many fatwas of Imam Shafi do not have any applications in some areas. We get to the point that some hadiths of Prophet of Islam do not have any applications in some places because they are ijtihadi, interpretive. The same goes with the matter of circumcision. What I mean is, if Shafi's school has stated anything that it is only applicable in Egypt, in those times, there were certain situations that required this fatwa of Imam Shafi, and it could be that his fatwa cannot be used for Iran. Jurisprudence discussions can never be the main evidence, meaning that it is possible that a command given by a scholar in some circumstances and compulsory in one area can be useless in another. In the page 110, there is a photo. It is called Students Studying Religion, Hormozgan, photo taken by S.H. Talenda. There's a picture of a bunch of male students, all kids, standing side by side. Ilham Mandagari also interviewed Molla Jamal al-Din Waji in Pezve village, West Azerbaijan province. He believes that the reason for many cases of adultery in marriages in Pezve, according to valid information, is the lack of mutual satisfaction from sexual relations, where each partner blames the other one for lack of sexual satisfaction and subsequently seeks such satisfaction from a third party. He argues that this problem is actually rooted in non-Islamic female circumcision. In addition, according to his research, gynecologists believe that in some cases a large labia minora causes disturbances in sexual relations. In these cases, and according to studies available in medical books, only a part of an organ can be cut. It must be added that at the time of publishing this book, no reports have been published linking a large clitoris labia minora to disturbance in sexual relations. It is widely understood that changing ordinary people's perceptions of FGM is closely linked with altering the cleric's beliefs on the issue. This scrutiny of FGM has compelled prominent Islamic scholars to research the Quran and Hadith further and has brought some positive outcomes in terms of pronouncements against FGM. Some high-profile sheikhs and clerics, including some brave Iranian Sunni religious leaders, have denounced FGM in clear terms or called it permissible but not obligatory. These quotes were included earlier, give an idea of the range of arguments they use. Sheikh Al-Rafi also responded to one of our queries about the practice of FGM as a harmful practice. However, it is widely agreed that the four scholars of Islamic jurisprudence consider it obligatory or preferable. On the other hand, some scholars from Al-Azhar University in Cairo have their own stance, which contradicts that of the four schools of Islamic jurisprudence. Legal retribution or compensation for FGM. Some pro-FGM clerics in Iranian Kurdistan and the south of Iran defend and require FGM and base their arguments on the hadith mentioned earlier in this chapter. This can be interpreted as an instruction to limit the extent of female circumcision to a very minor cut. Of course, many forms of FGM are extreme and damage the woman's body and soul from every perspective. For example, the cutting of the labia. Islamic jurists from all four schools state that cutting both labias needs full diya and each labia half diya. The idea is that someone who loses the ability to enjoy sexual intercourse should be given full financial compensation, diya, equal to compensation for murder, blood money. For example, if someone breaks another's back, the victim should receive one full diya for the other resulting paralysis, and another full diya for losing the ability to have sex. In the case where the person is still able to have intercourse, but no semen is exerted, this rule still applies. In addition, Tofe, one of the canonical sources of Shafi, explicitly states that if the victim is able to have sexual intercourse but cannot take pleasure from it, then he must receive a full diya. If we apply the same hadith to a woman who has undergone FGM, it can be argued that a woman who has undergone a pharaonic circumcision should also receive a full diya. Given that the female circumcision is seen as one of the religious rites, no specific discussion is devoted to it in the sections related to diya and or crimes. However, there is another general principle, according to which, if any abuse or harm is done to somebody for which no compensation is defined, then the judicial system must determine one. The extent of harm to the body and soul and corresponding diya are defined. Nevertheless, the provision of sexual pleasure is included in the cases for which full diya should be paid. Circumcisers can be liable under Islam due to the fact that circumcision follows specific instructions, and anyone who does not follow them correctly, causing any harm to sexual organs, become obliged to pay a full diya. This research suggests that a new law should be passed to protect girls. Female genital mutilation or cutting should be done only with the permission of the coroner, and after puberty, the individual would be considered capable of making a decision independently. Chapter 4. Conclusions, Lessons Learned, and Recommendations. Conclusion. FGM occurs worldwide to subjugate women in the name of culture and religion. Though not imposed by the religion, people link Islam to the procedure to compel communities to practice it. The use of religion also helps FGM fulfill another goal, namely to subjugate women's desires. Ironically, women play an important role in perpetuating the practice. And although Africa, considered to the heartland of FGM, followed by parts of the Middle East and parts of Asia may be, the problem cannot be ignored in the rest of the world, since it moves as migrants make new lives elsewhere. UNICEF data shows that a massive number of women around the world are suffering directly or indirectly as a result of FGMC. UNICEF cites the figure of 140 million as the number of women who have been cut and mutilated, and 3 million girls are at each year of the fear of being cut. Nevertheless, the practice is in decline in many countries and people's attitudes towards it are changing. Although the lack of proper monitoring makes it hard to assess these trends or the effectiveness of past campaigns against FGM, we can draw some general conclusions which help to review and strengthen interventions and policies aimed at eliminating FGMC. In Chapter 1, we dealt with the global prevalence of FGM along with the historical background and linked the practice to patriarchal traditions which are thousands of years old. The link between FGM with religion was also seen to be doubtful, since FGM predates Islam and Christianity. Some Christians and Jews practice it, as do some communities with beliefs not linked to Middle Eastern monotheisms, such as Aboriginal Australians. Chapter 2 dealt with the prevalence of FGMC in Iran. This research shows that FGM plays a profound role in the social and cultural power structures of the communities in Iran that practice it, and that the resilience of the practice requires endeavors against it, both comprehensive and protracted. This research gives us preliminary data to construct a connection between the motives and cultural frameworks behind the practice, its prevalence, and a way forward to design foolproof strategies to combat it. In the page 114, we have a photo. It is called Engagement Ceremony, South of Iran, photo by S.H. Tolinda. It's a picture of 5 women. It's taken from a bird's eye view. Each of them are holding something in their hands. Data by UNICEF shows that there are a massive number of women in the world today who are suffering from FGMC. The UNICEF mentions that the figure of 140 million women who have been cut and 3 million girls are at each year of the fear of being cut. These rituals practicing worldwide to subjugate women in the name of culture and religion. Though not imposed by the religion, people attach this ritual with Islam to compel the communities to practice it with divine beliefs. Many studies show that FGM is not only an African practice, but has found its roots in the Middle East, Asia, immigrants in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Europe, and the United States. Mount Storm, ETAL, 2011. In Iran, the tenacious nature of the practice of FGM makes it challenging for the human rights activists and organizations that have to eliminate it from roots. Nevertheless, this study shows in its first chapter that the practice is in decline in many countries and other changes in attitudes toward the ritual are also underway. Nevertheless, the data also indicates that in other countries, the prevalence of FGM remains nearly unchanged. Lack of proper monitoring means that the findings of efforts to eradicate FGM in recent decades cannot be fully assessed, but a general conclusion can be drawn on the basis of the available data about alterations in prevalence and shifts in attitudes towards it. These findings can contribute to view objectives, policies, and interventions towards the elimination of FGM. The findings of the research contribute to the realization of the fact that FGM is a clear infringement of the women-girls' rights. A comprehension of the social setting uncovers the defensive inspirations that underpin the practice. The research clearly indicates that FGM occurs in other parts of the world beside Africa. The first chapter of the research dealt with the global prevalence of FGM along with the historical background, and links this with the patriarchy, which is more than 2,000 years old. The affiliation of FGM with the religion is also doubtful, as it predates Islam and Christianity. In addition, it is evident from the first chapter that FGM also occurs among Christians and Jews in other communities, such as Aboriginal Australians. Among Christians, the example of Ethiopia and in Ethiopia, while in the Jew groups Beta Israel and Falasha, Faveli, and Pataman 2003 are quite well known for keeping this ritual continue. The religion justifications for imposing FGM as a tool to subjugate women's desire are without question. Yet, women play a predominant role in imposing the ritual on new generations, and they act as a proactive catalyst in its existence and prevalence. FGM in Iran is not new. However, the unavailability of data made it practically invisible. What's more, the government was reluctant to admit its existence, and ordinary people were also silent as the whole subject became taboo. Our study has highlighted already existing research of the form of the postgraduate theses by non-local students, the majority of them female. Data clearly shows that the highest rates of FGM can be found in Hormozgan province, although it is also common in a few other provinces in northwest and west of Iran. In Chapter 3, we looked at the roles of national and international treaties and the laws of elimination of the practice. Although we saw that FGM is not imposed by Islam, the roles of the clerics and imams is significant in the practice. Our research also clearly shows that the law alone cannot change perceptions. It needs a firm commitment on the part of the communities and governments to work together and make it happen. Lesson learned from the research and pilot program. Over a 10-year journey, this study learned many lessons. The work benefited from engaging and cooperating with communities at all levels, which helped encourage vital participation among the groups who wanted to interact with. The government and the human rights organizations have acquired new data as a result of our research about the harms of FGM and how it infringes human rights. And this has brought a wave of new awareness which can create a paradigm shift towards the elimination of the practice. The pilot interventions have benefited from this shift and gradually transitioned from providing medical care to broad-based FGM awareness training, which includes lobbying and networking with stakeholders, religious figures, and the community. Awareness-raising campaigns and advocacy are generally appropriate and important ways to impart knowledge, but are not sufficient to eliminate FGM. Similarly, concentrating on the health hazards of the practice will only encourage modified patterns of cutting. However, the combination of advocacy, awareness raising, and medicalization can prove an efficient way to achieve that goal. On the page 116, there is a photo. It is called Wedding Neshb, Hormozgan. Photo taken by S.H. Talenda. It's a picture of many women gathered around, walking outside, in different clothing, colorful and some dark. Beyond that, more interventions will be required so that the community will be able to explore other culturally acceptable and less harmful rites of passage into adulthood of their daughters. This research learned that any productive and enduring effort within Iranian society must involve developing of the trust of the locals and national government. In the case of FGM, the best partner and mediator to smooth the path for the future negotiations with the Iranian Health Ministry and Social Services are the UN and UNFPA agencies in Tehran, which are trusted by Iranian authorities. Future cooperation between such agencies is vital to transfer experience and data so that they start talking to the government in behalf of NGOs. Community ownership of change or integrated socio-economic development approaches are the most efficient ways to bring about lasting changes. Furthermore, all social groups, health workers, religious and other leaders, and social authorities have a role to play in abandoning FGM. Working together as stakeholders enables the community to achieve great things. A holistic approach, also addressing other base needs and prominent concerns while at the same time focusing on rights and health-related issues, appears to be the most viable path. In addition, the capacities of communities needs to be strengthened to promote change as well as to empower them internally. Although the involvement of religious leaders was challenging during the pilot interventions, it also proved quite influential, especially for those groups who were insisting FGM is a part of Islam. And an obtrusive observation from the research concerns the self-reinforcing behavior of mothers in FGM practicing areas. It starts from the home, where mothers organize a new round of the brutality which they themselves experience. They play a significant role in the transferring the legacy of pain and torment to the next generation. For them, the motivation factor is the good life they believe their daughters will have after circumcision, because mutilation guarantees they will get married. Ultimately, society is the culprit, and people must realize that the subjugation of women by controlling their sexuality and bodies is not inappropriate for the 21st century. In the page 117, there is a picture. It is called Children in Gesh, photo by S.H. Talenda. There's a picture of a bunch of kids sitting near an iron door. The way forward. Recommendations. The recommendations which follow have been extracted from the findings of a decade-long journey of struggle and take into account the opinion of communities and other stakeholders involved. The role of government in combating FGM is of preeminent importance. Should the government of Iran recognize the practice as a women's right violation, it would encourage the community to view FGM not only as a life-threatening practice, but also one that is not morally sound. Once the government acknowledges FGM's existence, developing an effective action plan should be the next step. The government should embrace a rights-based approach to deal with FGM. The imperative step is to use political discussion and dialogue to synchronize any action plan with the universal human rights commitment. The government should enhance the endeavor to end FGM by responsibility and supervision to national and international organizations. Collaboration with other countries where FGM exists but is in decline will support the government's efforts. There's a picture. Iranian cartoonist Manan Nayestani on FGM. In the page 118, there's a photo. It's a drawing of a bunch of women, headless, hanged upside down by their legs. There's only one woman left, and the area below her abdomen is bleeding. A man holding a cleaver is standing close. The government must work effectively to ensure that measures to fight FGM are merged into national education and health programs to protect girls and disseminate information about FGM. It is also imperative that the government ratify the existing appropriate international human rights pact, such as Women's Conventions, CEDAW, the Children's Rights Convention, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights Covenant, and so on, the Bunjil Charter, the European and American Conventions, Rahman and Tobia 2000. Ratification of these treaties will be a first step towards social change, which also be followed by reviewing national legislation to bring into harmony with these treaties. New laws must also be enacted to address FGM. Merging of community efforts with national efforts can bring a sustained end to the practice of FGM. The endorsement of community efforts by state actors will give them courage and strength to continue with their efforts. Besides, the national government should give special attention to the 4 affected provinces of Hormozgan, West Azerbaijan, Kermanshah, and Kurdistan. A special action plan should be devised with the involvement of the provincial ministries of the respective provinces and authorities. In the page 119, there is a picture. It is called Pilot Intervention, Kermanshah. The picture is taken by Kamil Ahmadi. It's a picture of 3 women walking side by side. National healthcare services, social services, An education ministry should provide resources in rural areas for communities in limited or no access to cities. Healthcare services should mainly focus on treating women and girls for FGM-related conditions, provision of training and altering work for babies, and creating awareness among communities regarding to the evils of FGM. Social services, through the use of mobile teams, should organize meetings and hold face-to-face sessions with the affected communities and arrange awareness campaigns including meetings with the clerics, etc. The education sector should access nurseries and schools to reach out to children and provide them with healthcare-related information and also identify girls who already live with FGM. Implementations of laws require immense courage in the Kurdish regions and the south. Societies where clerics and influential women can play a proactive role in the name of religion and culture. The role played by religious leaders is among the most influential in its perpetuating FGM, so they need to be persuaded to make a proclamation against FGM in order to empower their communities in struggle to end the practice. The pilot intervention has provided a platform for religious leaders to speak out against the ritual. These interventions need to continue, which can be ensured through advocacy work with and the lobbying of clerics to persuade them to state clearly that there is no religious basis for FGM. This should become a formal campaign so that the effort can be properly implemented and acknowledged. In the page 120, there's a photo. It is called Women NGO. It is taken by Kamil Ahmadi. Capacity building of health providers is also imperative so they can reach out to women beyond those who come forward because they have FGM-related complications. Health issues related to FGM are embarrassing for women too, so tend to be hidden, and doctors are unable to diagnose and treat them. We need a trained cadre of health professionals who can identify problems, offer counseling, and recommend treatment. This was already practiced through the mobile health service in pilot interventions. Such interventions merit replication and suitable funding. The government must also enhance the national reproductive health strategies and address women who have already suffered with the ritual of FGMC. Women and girls living with FGM are also more prone to psychological issues and illnesses than those who have not been cut, and the severity of psychological conditions depends on multiple factors such as severity of cutting, the cultural extent, etc. Government recognition of FGM as a women's right violation should greatly assist in addressing these concerns. Professional education and training programs should be devised for medical professionals, counselors, and youth workers to understand the seriousness of the issue and to train them in tackling the psychological consequences of FGM in a sensitive and non-judgmental manner. Active surgery can preserve the effect of FGM. Fuldus, ETAL 2012. This study recommends that government should take appropriate measures to introduce such treatments in Iran. It should be covered by a national medical insurance scheme so that the poor and vulnerable women can access this surgery. Systematic local media can change the entire scenario in the context of FGM. The pilot interventions has used the media as an avenue to combat FGM. Media coverage of community efforts against FGM would also be helpful. Online media could, for example, interview clerics, the medical professionals, about the ill effects of the practice. A trained cadre of youngsters is required to engage in effective dialogues using the power of social networking tools. The traditional print media should be encouraged to cover FGM, something the government can do by providing an environment for writers to discuss FGMC without the fear of a backlash. Favorable media coverage is essential to speed up the elimination process. Capacity building is also needed within the media to ensure that journalists are culturally sensitive in their coverage. Education officials should produce tailor-made programs for schools in FGM-affected provinces, taking into account local sensitivities. In the page 122, there's a picture. It is called Clergymen in Mashhad. It is taken by Kamil Ahmadi. Iran lacks comprehensive national research program to track FGM. New funding is imperative to build up the monitoring and evaluation capacities in order to streamline and shape interventions. Resource mobilization will ultimately contribute to a paradigm shift regarding FGMC, which will bring a sustainable change in social norms. There is an urgent need to strengthen the capacities of the organizations and individuals to initiate evidence-based research, monitoring, and evaluation on this delicate issue. Besides, academic-funded research should take a gender and human rights-based perspective, producing a nationwide report on FGM with the involvement of healthcare and social services, and prove an effective tool to highlight the issue. In addition to the role of laws and legislation, we recommend a participatory approach to developments in affected area. Culturally sensitive interventions are necessary for women and girls who have already suffered from FGMC, and for that, working with communities is a significant part of the effort to prevent and eliminate the practice. Engaging key community influencers and leaders, including men, and providing support for community-based activities to change social norms always brings about durable change. Dizoda and Communication, 2007. Shrestha, ETAL, 2014. Furthermore, the involvement of young women as activists in preventing a right in which women are the direct victims and also the perpetrators. Capacities of NGOs and community-based organizations, CBOs, need to be enhanced so that they can perform their role as an agent of change effectively manner. International funding to build local organization is needed, and the government should take the initiative to discuss with the UN agencies. In addition, the Iran-based arms of UNICEF and UNFPA can help empower local organizations in terms of creating awareness of FGM in all of its aspects. The UN has the knowledge and expertise to deal with FGM, as it is working to eliminate the practice in most FGM-affected countries. This is imperative because local organizations are the ones which access communities and work with them. Therefore, guild teams are a prerequisite to contribute to the cause. It is a conundrum that in Iran, the official religion of the Iran is the Shia branch of Islam. While the practice of FGM is common among Sunni communities, the government often lacks the trust of communities in Sunni majority areas. The reports and findings of every civil society organization and NGO go straight to the government with suggestions and recommendations. The role of government is therefore very crucial in this regard. Lack of cooperation and trust is a massive hurdle to clear in a campaign against FGM. Community actors and government bodies have a duty to address these differences and work together. The government should develop ways to gain the trust and confidence of Sunni communities so that they can appreciate the efforts the government is making to end FGM.